All right, so this will be for the homework for Finance 420, Module 2. So that'll be chapters 14 and 15. This is chapter 14, and I went ahead and I just put the first three questions together because they're pretty short. So we are given like a par value, a coupon, a current price, right? And so in that first one, we just take the coupon divided by the current price, and that'll give you the current yield. The difference from the 940 to the par value 100, that's going to be capital gain, but the current yield, we're just going to use the annual coupon payment. For the problem two, you see it's in parts A and B. They give you a T-bill. They tell you what it sells at and then the par value. And then they give you a coupon bond telling you what that is. And then they ask you to get the effective rates. So you have both of those there. And then the last one is a treasury bond. It's a semi-annual payment. They focus on that because they want you to understand, what happens when you change it from semi-annual to annual, right? And you see the difference in that based on a semi-annual coupon. If it were an annual coupon, since you don't get that 6 month of growth, you have to wait for the full year. It actually ends up being a larger payment, 13.85 for a 13.4 compounded monthly. Okay, this is problem four. It's got three parts, A, B, and C. These are always easier on your financial calculator. We use normally the Texas Instruments BA2 Plus, but you could actually just use an online calculator as well. But they give you it's a 15-year bond. Its par value is 1,000. It's semi-annual, so we know we'll have to double the number of periods. The coupon rate is 12%. So we know we're going to have to cut that in half if they're semi-annual payments. Instead of $120, it'll be 60. Find the bond equivalent effective annual yield. And then you see, we'll just put that in the calculator in as the number of periods, FV, the future value. That's going to be that par value at the end. Present value is your price. And then, as we had said, the payment is half of that 12%. So it's $60 instead of $120. Okay, this is problem five. And again, you notice it looks very similar, but they're asking for different numbers, right? So you can see how you could put that in and then get those the bond equivalent yields. Okay, and this table, you're just filling it in. So this is just showing you what the bond equivalent would be in the early ones, and then further down what the price would have to be for that to be true. So we'll just remember the zero coupon bond, so there's no payment. All the par values is 1,000, so your FV is 1,000, right? So price will be your present value, maturity in years will be in. So we can solve for each of those. Yield to maturity is the IY. Okay, this is problem seven. And again, you see this. By the way, when you're working the problem, some of these it may be a little bit off when you're looking at it. There may be a rounding thing. So normally don't round with your calculator. Just go ahead and work the entire problem, and then enter it. Because it can be finicky about that. But yeah, so again, we're going to use a financial calculator in these to make that a lot easier. Problems 8 and 9, I put on the same page again. The top one is 8, and then that bottom one is 9. For the top one, this is to go from the clean to the dirty price because we have to include that interest that would occur as well, and include that to come up with the price for the invoice. And then on the tips for problem 9, what we're doing is we're having to include in inflation. Tips is that Treasury inflation protected security, right? So it's protecting from inflation. So we're going to add inflation in to our real rate to get us that nominal rate. This is problems 10 and 11. Again, they're just sharing a page. So problem 10, it's a 20-year security, the zero coupon, so payment's going to be equal to zero. Yield to maturity is your IY. Face value, that's the same as the future value, it's 1,000. And then we can calculate the imputed interest that would be in those years. And then in chapter 11, we're going to be using, time value of money again. But once we calculate what that will be, we calculate what the price would be. We see what the increase in price is. And then we would have to pay tax on that increase as well as on the coupon we receive. Right. So that's what that shows. This is problem 12. Again, we're given a number, a period. It was 15, but semi-annual, so it'll be 30. It's a 7.5% coupon. So once we multiply that, we'll have to divide that by 2, right? When we put that in for our payment. It's callable in 5 years at a price at 1,100. So we could get called out, right? But if we do, it will be at 1,100, not at 1,000. And then they say the current yield to maturity is 6%, but we're going to use 3% because that's the half year. And so you see A, B, and C, we're just using the time value of money to calculate yield to maturity and then calculating what the yield to the call would be. And then if the call price is lower, what does the new yield to call? So that's what we're doing in that. So the yield to call is, like, if they call us out, it's because the bond price has shot up. Normally interest rates have fallen, bond prices go up. They have the right to call it out of the market. We're guaranteed to get 1,100 instead of 1,000, but we get called out early. The reason this provision would be there, it gives them an opportunity to issue a new bond at that lower rate. So it's kind of like refinancing a loan. But we actually have it sort of this prepayment penalty that's built in with that call, right? These are problems 13 and 14. Again, we're going to be using that time value of money calculation. Most of these bond problems will do that. Yield to maturity is going to be IY, that type of thing. So as you're going in and calculating these, that's what you're doing. I'm showing you the way to enter it. And these are 15 and 16. Problem 15 again is coming up with like that dirty price. And then 16 is pretty long. If you notice, there's like 5 sections. So the answer to A is there. But then B through E is on this next slide. And I know it looks a little jumbled. I try to keep it as together as possible so that it makes sense sort of how to work through that. But as you're working on chapter 14 homework, if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Continuing on into chapter 15, questions 1 through 5 are really just sort of definitions where you're going to draw, select from like a drawdown list. So skipping over that and jumping right into 6, we have a zero coupon bond. We got different maturities and different prices, right, which would be the present value. We're going to assume the par value is 1,000 because normally that's what they are for corporate bonds. And so we're going to calculate yield to maturity, which is that IY for each of those. So you see there, it shows like the equation to use this. You could use this in the calculator. There's a zero coupon, so payment's 0, FV's 1,000. Present value will be that bond price, N is the number of years. And then the forward rate, this is, we know what we were getting in year 1, and we know what we're getting in year 2. So then what we do is look at what the different rate would be. Like you add one to each of those. Um, and then you divide year two by year one, right? Get that difference, subtract the one off of it. And that is the rate that we would think in at the end of year one, you're going to receive in year two, right? So that the year one, we calculated the 1 year at 1.95. If you have it for 2 years, you're going to get 4.54. So in 1 year, I get less than two. So for that to average out to 4.5, then obviously I've got to get a lot more return, and that's where that 7.21 comes in, right? And then the other one, if I initially I'm going to get that 4.45 and I'm comparing it to 3 years at 5.85, I got to get a lot in that third year for the average to come up that much, right? And so that's what you're seeing with those forward rates. This is question 7. It's got a part A and part B, but they're both worked out the same way. So again, you can always use the calculator. I'm just kind of showing you a couple of different ways of doing it. So with it being a zero coupon, you can just use the present value and future value, and then take the nth root, right, of that. But yeah, so that's how you would calculate those, and then calculate what would the expected price be, because we know what these rates are going to be. Okay, this one in part 8, again, we have in given yield to maturity is the IY. It's $1,000 future value. The current price would be, let's see. Oh, okay. So we're just going to use the existing one. So we're not going to calculate price. We're just calculating these forward rates, or what we think it's going to be. So um, bond B in 1 year, right? They would have gotten that 7%. The if it was 1 year, and then the second year, what does it have to be for that to work back out um, to average that 8%? So it ends up being 9.1, right? So it's what we were doing before. But the expectations of what we think the yield curve in 1 year will be much higher, right? Because those are being averaged with that 7% 1 year rate, and we're getting 8, 8.5, and 9. So that's what that's showing. This is problem 9. Again, this is another one where we're looking at those yield curves. Okay, and bond 10, I know, or question 10, I know this one. I just try to put it on one slide because it's easier. A lot of times you can just pause it and read through it. So I try to put the answer with the question as much as possible, so you're not trying to skip back and forth in the video. But you see, we just use the what we're given. We have a yield to maturity. We have there's zero coupon bonds, so there's no payment. They're going to issue another 2 year bond, but that's got a coupon, right? And so we're going to try to reconcile those prices. It does mention like a liquidity preference. And this is just if I have to, because I'm locking in my money for longer, I do not have the liquidity, right? So if I were to have that type of liquidity preference and need to add in 1%, that's what that's doing, right? Is just bumping that up to make up for that liquidity. Okay, this is problem 11. It's got two parts, A and B. But again, we're trying to calculate what the price would be. We know it's a zero coupon bond. We know the future value. They tell us or no, they give us what the zero coupon would be. We're asked to calculate a coupon bond, knowing what the zero coupon rates are. So this one shows like if you use the annuity factors, right? But you can obviously just put this in the calculator, and you have the annual coupon of $96. You know the future value is 1,000. So what we're going to do is just end up solving for what the price would the present value, right? Based on those entrances. Yeah, I hope this one's not too complicated. They ask for A, B, C, and D. And again, it's just that time value of money. I show it with like the annuity factor for those coupon payments, and then the present value factor for the $1,000 par value. But you can, of course, just put that in your calculator. Um, you know, zero coupon bond means payments equal to zero. You have it's a 3-year bond, so you can also compare it, just putting those into the calculator to solve for the price, yield to maturity, that type of thing. Another similar problem here in 13, but they give you 4 years of what the yield to maturity will be. That's your IY, as we're going through time. And then calculate what you think a 1 year and 4 year bond, or the return would be for a 1 year and 4 year bond. And then which one would be the greater 1 year return, right? And so the longer term bond in this case, but it's just because of where the yield to maturity is and how much you think it's going to decline. Okay, so for the arbitrage opportunity, that's what we're looking at, is where there's just a mispricing, right? And so we're not taking on risk, but we're able to take advantage, right, of this mispricing. Okay, this one is again a little complicated, A, B, C, D, and E, right? But hopefully, as you see, all we're doing are calculating the same types of things we did before. They've just presented it in a word problem a little bit differently. But these are those same types of time value money calculations, including calculating what these forward rates will be. Okay, so 16 I had to split over a couple of slides because there's so many different sections. But they give us this yield curve. 1 year is at 5%, 2 years is at 7%, 3 years is at 8%. So it's a normal yield curve, upward sloping. And so based on that, we can get what the implied rates are, right, over these the 1 year, and then the forward rate from year 2, or at the end of year 1, what the 2 year bond would be at that forward rate, and then the 3 year what it would be. And then if you notice B and C, if we're using what that yield is on the 1 year and the 2 year to calculate that other yield to maturity. So and then D, E, F, and G, I'm going to go to the next slide. So just jot down those numbers, right, for the maturity part. And then when you look at this next one, right, and we're just doing those same calculations, going a bit further out to calculate what those expected returns would be. Okay, and this is question 17, and it has 3 parts. It's trying to fit it all, on one slide and make it kind of clear. But for the forward rates, right, that we've been doing, we have our prices that are given, and so we can calculate the yield to maturity on that, and then based on that, come up with what is the forward rate that would be implied. Right. And so, and then as far as the loan construction, hopefully it sort of makes sense. I tried to use arrows to explain which one we're talking about. So, um, part B, we're making this 1 year loan that's going to happen at year 3. So we're going to contract now for something that's going to bridge us from 3 to 4. And then in part C, it's going to go from year 4 to 5. Right. So, that's what we're doing with those. And this is the last one, question 18. And then the answer, it kind of goes clockwise. A is kind of in the middle there. Just, calculating what that would be, for um, the 5 year maturity that we would have to buy, right? So 1.22 of those, right? For this. As for part B, we're looking at the cash flows from that, right? Because we're going to buy the a 3 year now, and then we're going to pay the 5 years later, right? So this would look like a loan that happens in year 3, and then we pay it back in year 5, right? If you look at the cash flows, that's what that would look like. And then we can calculate the effective rates on that. All right, and that's it for module 2. If you do have any questions or concerns, please just email me and let me know. Thank you.